If you remember back to the first class that we did, at the end of that particular class, an individual came to me at the end and asked, how do we know who is an authority? Who do we take our faith from? Who do we listen to? Whose books do we read? Whose YouTube lectures do we invest time listening? And I did not answer that question there and then. Mistakenly, I said, I will do that later on, thinking that she'll come every week, which she did say she would, but she hasn't come back ever since. But mistake, I just told her there and then, because we don't have the aptitude to maintain consistency due to a variety of factors. But you will appreciate by the end of today's class why I couldn't tell this particular student the answer there and then, because it needs an introduction to what is the classical understanding of Islam. We're about to say, follow the Ash'aris, the Maturidis, and Aqidah, follow one of the four schools in fiqh, and follow a path of spirituality. That individual who has not any perhaps background in any of those things, just look at me. I know what you're talking about. It's a difficult thing, But such is the time we live in, inshallah. So, that's our question. How has Islam been understood, preserved, and translated by the vast majority of scholars for the vast majority of our history? This has been dealt with successfully, I hope, and in great depth. And obviously the Jibril hadith, I did say most of you will now be very familiar with the hadith, and we'll be able to at least give the main aspects of this hadith, be able to memorize the main aspects of this hadith, it's not word for word. And the hadith is broken down into this diagram. Again, we're very familiar with this diagram. Islam, Iman, Ihsan, and the fact that Islam is through the four Madhab, the four schools in Sunni Islam. Iman is through the Ash'aris, the Maturidis, and the Tafweed of Ahl Hadith. And Ihsan, to worship Allah as if you see Him, and if you cannot, then know that He sees you. That has traditionally been the focus on the development of the science of Tasawwuf, which in English means Sufism. That's what we've kind of reached to, that conclusion. So to recap of the past 8 weeks, Allah in His wisdom has promised that He will preserve His faith, Quran 59. This can be easily seen through history by what the vast majority of scholars for the vast majority of time have followed. And in that we find, in the level of Islam, as we preserve through the schools, the four madhabs in particular, and in the level of Iman, like I mentioned, the schools of Aqidah, and in the level of Ihsan, to worship Allah as if you see Him. This term, Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, this is perhaps new for a lot of you. Eventually, the scholars developed a term to designate who were the vast majority of Muslims who follow the way of the Prophet ﷺ and the early Sahaba. And this was done more of a, because the sects and the groups that appeared early on in Islam, each one was calling to their version of authority, and that they were the chosen sect and the same sect that you should subscribe to. And the vast majority of scholars, the vast majority of the ulama then came and made a title called Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, which is a term given to mean the main body of Sunni Orthodox Muslims and their beliefs. So if somebody says, are you Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, what they're hopefully referring to is, do you subscribe to the main, the vast majority of Muslims for the vast majority of time, and we know what that means. So it's a way of basically separating ourselves from the sects that appeared early on in Islam. The Mu'tazilites could not be referred to as Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. The Shi'as could not be referred to as Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. The various other sects could not refer to themselves as Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah is an umbrella term to signify basically what we have been talking about for the past 8 weeks. And what is it defined as? Well, historically it's defined as those that follow on the four schools of fiqh. one of the schools of Aqidah, namely the Ash'aris, the Maturidis, and the non-anthropomorphists of the ethnic Ahl Hadith, Hanbali, who do tafweed. And number 3, those that follow a path of ihsan, tasawwuf, that is grounded in the Quran and Sunnah. So, historically, the term Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, historically, when it's been mentioned, it refers to people who subscribe to these aspects that you see behind me. Okay? And generally it means those who subscribe to all 3. You see, all 3. Because somebody may claim to be Hanbali, following one of the 4 schools, but may not necessarily be following a school of Aqidah, maybe an anthropomorphist, or somebody who claims that God has an outward form. So they would fall short there. Or maybe they follow one of the 4 schools, and perhaps follow one of the schools, recognized schools of Aqidah, but in spirituality they don't recognize it at all, and maybe even heavily criticize the very essence of what it is that Tasawwuf gives, which is ihsan, and reject that. Inshallah. So that's Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Historically, has been recorded by the scholars of the past, which I don't really have time to go into today, but I just wanted to leave that with you. So Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the vast majority of Muslims, but the vast majority of time. So instead of me saying that all the time, I refer to it as Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, which then should trigger in your minds the vast majority of Muslims, but the vast majority of time. Has that gotten through to you? Good. So when we look at the great scholars of authority in Islam, in Hadith, or Tafsir, Quranic commentary, or Fiqh, or Aqidah, they all fall into the above definition. So if I was to say, for example, if you were, hypothetically, if you were to have, if I was to say, all the Ummah, the great scholars of this Ummah in a room, the majority of people standing up. Those that will still be sitting will be those who are traditionally looked at as being outside of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and maybe, with some, except, maybe you could even argue even some of them, not all, outside of Islam are all together. But generally, that's the type of visual impression I want you to go home with, is that if we can say everybody stand up, those that were left sitting were people who would be termed as the people of innovation, at the very least, of our definitions. So people in the green circle? No, the blue. The blue, inshallah. Okay. So anyone who does not conform to this, historically, is not known to be from Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, despite their claims. Despite their claims. No one's going to say we are deviants. No one's going to say we are a sect that does not represent the Prophet or the Sahaba. Everyone's going to claim authority. You see, so no one's going to say that, but that doesn't help you. How do you know? Well, history is the greatest witness, so you look back and you judge them by what you now have come to understand historically. Somebody recently said that they went back and checked some of the things that I've been teaching and saying as historical facts, which is good. I have no problems with doing that. In fact, I welcome and encourage that happening, and they came back and said, what you're saying is accurate, that's what I found. But I just throw that out there, inshallah, go back and check if what I'm saying, if you can prove to me that the vast majority of this ummah did not follow one of the 4 schools, or did not follow one of the recognized schools of Aqidah, or did not follow or recognize one of the paths of Tasawwuf, if you can come back and show me that the vast majority of the great scholars of this ummah did not do that, and you can prove to me, and again, I don't want you saying Sheikh so-and-so said it, because I'll throw you and Sheikh so-and-so out the window. I will prove on the level that I'm giving to you, historical information, inshallah. Because you always find somebody say, oh, Sheikh so-and-so said this, and Sheikh so-and-so said that. And it's like, well, just giving you 1,000 years worth of historical fact, and you're telling me Sheikh so-and-so, and you kind of, it's massively disrespectful, and a waste of my time as well, inshallah. If you can come back and show me historically, you can prove to me historically, otherwise, Bismillah. So follow this and know that you are in the majority. Follow one of the 4 schools in fiqh, follow one of the schools, recognized schools of Aqidah, and follow a spiritual path. And know that you are, or at the very least, respect and acknowledge the importance of a spiritual path, if I find one as well. And recognize that you, by virtue of that, are in the majority. And history is the greatest witness to that. And essentially what we're doing, by doing that, we have simplified the chaos dramatically for everybody. Would you agree to that? After 9 weeks, have I simplified some of your chaos? Or have I brought more chaos? Let me hear, I think this is where you talk back.
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, so these guys are non-chaotic. What about you guys over here? Anybody chaotic? Well, is that a hand you're chaotic? You've been coming from day one. You're still chaotic.
No,
You just come in now, you don't even know the question I just
I
asked.
think it made me realize the gaps in my knowledge and how much I need to go off and do my madrasa, let's say, to be able to fill it in.
Alright, that's a good thing, right? Okay, so that's not chaotic. Does anybody feel more confused after all these classes? I know some of the concepts have been a bit heavy. I recognize the fact that some of these classes go on longer perhaps than maybe what you're expecting, but the information is, there's so much information to try and get out there that's difficult to do that without selling it short. Inshallah. But hopefully that's the idea, simplifying people's chaos dramatically for those who've been attending regularly. So this is today's question. This is today's class. It's a lot less, it's not as heavy as other classes. However, it doesn't mean to say that it's not important as other classes. I would argue that today's class could be the most important classes, or the most important class we've had from all the classes. So you'll see why as we go through. So how to recognize who is an authority and who is not when it comes to Islam, Iman, Ihsan. This question has come up quite regularly, and if you paid attention, I haven't gone into it in much detail. Right? I haven't gone into that much detail into it. Why? I've kind of left it to today, and the whole class will be on this. So everyone follows someone's interpretation. But whose interpretation of Islam do you follow? Are they qualified? And what makes them so? And how do we judge? Bismillah, let's read. Abdullah.
Perhaps the biggest challenge in learning Islam correctly today is the scarcity of traditional ulama. In this meaning, Bukhari relates the Sahih, rigorously authenticated hadith that the Prophet said, "Truly, Allah does not remove sacred knowledge by taking it out of servants, but rather by taking back the souls of Islamic scholars in death, until He has not left a single scholar. The people take the ignorant as leaders, who are asked for and who give Islamic legal opinion without knowledge, misguided and misguiding."
So one of the biggest challenges that you, as Muslims in this day and age, face, that looking over a 20-year period, I've seen it become even more difficult. It's a lot more difficult now for you guys than it was for me 20 years ago at this particular stage of my life, to try and work out who to listen to, who represents Islam, who does not. Now it's even more difficult because you have such a massive amount of data or information out there that it's just simply mind-boggling. Who do you listen and who speaks for Islam? It's more difficult now, and God knows in 20 years' time for your children how much more difficult it is going to be. SubhanAllah. But this hadith in Bukhari is a very interesting hadith in that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his nubuwwah, his prophecy, is again showing us why he is a prophet, that he's telling us things that are going to happen many centuries after he has left the world physically. Truly, Allah does not remove sacred knowledge by taking it out of servants. The idea that knowledge is taken not by people forgetting things. No, knowledge is not removed from the world in that particular way. Rather, it's by the death of the scholars. So when the ulama die, the scholars die, the knowledge then that they've acquired throughout 20, 30, 40 years of dedication and hardship then goes with them. And the idea is that this will increase and get to a stage in which there's not even a single scholar left. Or, there's not enough scholars out there that reflect the amount of people that maybe can ask questions. Until when Allah has not left a single scholar, the people take the ignorant as their leaders, who are asked for an opinion, and who give an Islamic legal opinion without knowledge. They are misguiding themselves, and then they misguide others. So this process now has already started. Okay, you could argue this process has already started. The process described in the hadith is not yet completed, but has certainly begun. And in our time, the lack of traditional scholars. When I say traditional scholars, does anybody know what I mean by that?
Scholars from the four madhabs?
Yeah. So when I say traditional scholars, I mean scholars from the four madhabs and obviously the schools of Aqidah and a valid spiritual path, inshallah. Okay, so that's what I mean by traditional scholars. Whether in Islamic law or hadith or in tafsir, Quranic tafsir, has given rise to an understanding of the religion that is far from scholarly and sometimes far from the truth. Bismillah.
With the advent of the internet, satellite channels, and widespread distribution of information on Islam, people in this age have greater access to understanding their faith. This has not always been a blessing, as a growing number of Muslims are learning their faith through TV shows, the net, social media, and modern literature. This has resulted in confusion. Many have found themselves confused with the sheer volume of different opinions. Faced with so many answers and opinions, they pick and they choose what suits them, or remain confused.
And this is what I'm seeing pretty much daily, and I would imagine those of you who know what's going on would perhaps agree with that analysis.
This can lead people open to manipulation, misinformation, and indoctrination.
Very true.
People cannot differentiate between a genuine qualified scholar, a preacher, a qualified scholar in one particular field only, or someone for whom Islam is a hobby that they like writing/lecturing.
So, most people cannot differentiate between a genuine qualified scholar or a preacher. When I say preacher, I mean someone of da'wah, like a da'i. A preacher, da'i. Yes, when you hear this term preacher, it means someone who's a da'i. Or a qualified scholar in one particular field only, or someone who Islam is a hobby that they read about and talk about in their spare time, or like writing and lecturing about. If anybody is able or confident enough to differentiate between those? How can you differentiate between a genuine qualified scholar or a preacher who has maybe 1,000 people watching his videos or his TV channel? How can you tell if he or she is a scholar or not? But better question, how many of you are not able to? Yeah, which is kind of what I thought. Huh?
Most just look at who appears scholarly in appearance or speech, and of course who has the largest followers, likes on social media.
Which is not an indication of scholarship. If you think that, take that out of your head straight away. Alright, if you think that a scholar is based solely, exclusively on how many people he or she has on the YouTube video or how many people listen to them, take that out of your head straight away. Otherwise you will remain confused. That has nothing to do with scholarship.
The power of faith. Faith is a very powerful force. It can transform a person's life from crime to piety, can mend relationships, instill good morals, provide peace and tranquility to a person's life. It can also be used to motivate people to give their wealth, time, and resources to worthy causes. If manipulated for political or economic purposes, they can be used to motivate people to harm, fight, and even kill. It is very important that one takes their understanding of Islam from authentic sources.
Why is that? Because if you don't, you're going to end up being open to manipulation, and people will, based on the power of faith. People understand that faith is such a powerful tool that if it's used in a particular way, it can bring results that the individual wants. So the governments manipulate different sects against each other politically, divide and conquer. So if they're fighting between each other, then they leave us alone. But if they're united, they kind of like focus on maybe what we should be doing or maybe what we're not doing. And also, it's a well-known tactic, this divide and conquer. And with Muslims, faith is the most important thing to Muslims. So therefore, attacking or deconstructing the very essence of what keeps them together, which is their faith, that is where most of people's focus who want to cause problems and destabilize Muslim communities and countries for centuries, that's where they focus mostly. And all you go just read your history and you'll pick up on this very quickly. I just basically switch on the TV and you'll see very quickly in the Middle East, this group fighting against that group and this group fighting against this group and so on and so forth. It's all done or packaged through faith.
Ignorance of the masses can be used against you. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king.
Not even bothering, I can't even pronounce it myself. There we go. That's a saying, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Who can tell me what I intend by that? Just walk in, knows the answer already.
Not that I know, I'm just going to attempt it.
Bismillah.
So.
In the context of what we've been talking about.
Sorry, what was the question?
Yeah. So when somebody is completely ignorant, they might follow someone who seems to have some knowledge to them.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. MashaAllah. Can anybody else give that answer? Yeah, that's the answer I'm looking for. Just walk in and give the answer. You can walk out and go home. But yeah, that's the idea. The idea that if somebody's completely blind and they're following somebody else who they themselves are partially blind, yeah, then to the one who's blind, they can see everything. So somebody with a bit of knowledge or the wrong understanding of knowledge can appear to somebody who doesn't have any knowledge as Sheikh Al-A'zam or Sheikh Al-Islam or Al-Khalifa, whatever. That's my point. Bismillah. Alright, the reality is that there are many people who speak about Islam who are not an authority, but speak as if they are. How many of you are aware of this? We have all sorts of experts, Muslim and non-Muslims, now telling us what Islam says or doesn't say, what is halal, haram, what is shirk, what is bid'ah, and what is the hijab, etc. Nowadays, people saying the hijab, there's no hijab in the Quran. The Quran does not talk about the hijab. I'll talk about that later on if I have time. But the point is that everyone now is an expert. Journalists, academics, preachers, speakers, and other professionals with no specialization in the Islamic sciences are talking about Islam as if they were experts. So people who have no Arabic are now telling you what the Quran actually means. People with no Arabic now are telling you that, well, it doesn't say hijab in the verse that talks about the hijab. It means something else. It doesn't say you have to wear the hijab, for example. I'm just using the hijab as an example that somebody spoke to me about recently in this particular topic, which comes back to this issue. Or, for example, in fiqh or other aspects. No specialization in Arabic language or in Sharia or in Islamic creed. They are reaching very strange, unorthodox positions and views that range from the liberal, reformist, modernist, what is the end of the word that they're going by at this moment, right through to the violent jihadists and everything in between. So if you can imagine, on one side you've got the very liberal, reformist, modernist type, and on the other extreme you've got the violent jihadists. And they are diametrically opposed to each other, but they all share in the same, how they've reached those conclusions is very similar. They've completely rejected the tradition, 1,000 years of scholarship, and reinterpreted things again without the expertise and the wisdom of the ancients. So many people take their opinions without realizing that they are not credible sources. Most people have a very superficial understanding of who we should listen to regarding our faith. And as a result of this, we see what? The mess that we see today and the confusion that we see today. So where should we take our knowledge from? Whenever Allah has sent a book to guide mankind, He has also sent a messenger, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to explain it. So this illustrates that the correct way of transmitting knowledge is through a teacher. It's never been, and never will, somebody takes a book, reads a book, and becomes a scholar of Islam. That is an innovation, not a good innovation. Alright? Somebody taking a book, reading about Islam, and now being an expert in Islam, this is something that has historically never ever been done before. Okay? But it needs a teacher. The role of the teacher is vital in aspects of knowledge that need explanation and interpretation. If you don't have the Arabic language, if you don't understand the language that's being used, and even Arabs, sometimes, a lot of the time, don't understand the technical usage of words in fiqh or even in aqidah, so on and so forth. Very specific technical vocabulary. A lot of Arabs nowadays don't even understand it themselves. So whose interpretation are you following? Are they qualified? How do you know they are? Bismillah. Anybody else want to read this? Haq? Not me, you.
Allah has made our faith a responsibility for us which are destructive, which we are to carry out to the end. But not everyone is intended to be a scholar. For society to function correctly, most people have other requirements. Thus Allah orders us to ask the experts if we do not know. So ask the people of remembrance of the scholars if you do not know.
So it's kind of known that you were not all born scholars. However, we, because of our faith and what our faith asks of us, there are certain things that we have to do, and those things have to be done correctly. In order for them to be done correctly, it means you have to have knowledge, which means you then have to go and ask and learn your faith from somebody who has the correct knowledge to be able to tell you how to practice your faith. Allah says in the Quran, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask those of remembrance, the scholars, if you do not know. Okay? So therefore it is vital to know who we should ask for clarification on Islamic issues. If Allah is telling us, ask the people, ask the scholars, then how do you and I know who is a scholar, who's not? Surely it must be easy for us to understand. There must be some guidelines, there must be some conditions that we can look to and then verify if somebody is worthwhile asking him or her or investing our time in him or her. Just like one takes medicine from a doctor, history from a historian, and law from a lawyer, one must take Islamic knowledge from a scholar. Alright, Ishaq, keep going.
If someone who has read a lot of medical books but never studied at university began to give medical treatment, he would be arrested and disciplined.
And this has happened, alright? This has happened in the past 20 years. There have been people who've claimed to be at this level and they've ended up killing people. They're in prison now, doing a very lengthy sentence.
The same for someone who sets himself as a lawyer having only read a few books without attending law school. If this is the care that we take with our earthly affairs, then how much caution must we have when dealing with our eternal fate, which affects us in this life and the next life and thereafter.
Okay, you understand the point there? The amount of caution you take with looking after your physical body or even your financial state or the things you have, you go to the right people. But when it comes to our faith, we seem to be quite content just to Google. Yeah? People who know me know that I hate this idea of Google your faith. Because you would never do that with your child's well-being or your own well-being. You wouldn't. Well, it says take this and do that, or put your body open and do this. You wouldn't do that. But why are we so reckless when it comes to our akhirah, our afterlife? That we don't give it that much care or attention.
By simply wearing a doctor's uniform, one does not become a doctor. Similarly, merely quoting from the Quran or possessing outward piety or dressing and speaking like a scholar does not make one a scholar. The Islamic sciences are a specialized field which require years of dedicated study with qualified scholars. It has its own sources, methodologies and principles similar to other specialized fields. Those that are self-taught often at times are misguided and misguided.
And this tends to happen a lot. That a lot of, in my experience, a lot of young people tend to be listening to semi-professional, if you could argue that, or at most times people who have been largely self-taught. In that they've taken Islam and they put a huge interest and read about it and memorized a lot of things, and they basically do a lot of talks and lectures and so on and so forth, and they're not really scholars. But they pass themselves off as scholars, and this is something which the Prophet ﷺ was fearful. In fact, in the hadith he said, I fear more for you, more than the Dajjal, he said. Evil and wicked scholars. The Prophet, I fear more. The damage they will do, I fear more the damage they will do over the Dajjal. Alright, so what credentials should a scholar have?
To be confident in receiving a proper, authentic answer to a question on Islam, one must ascertain the credentials of any speaker.
Okay, so, alright, the sisters at the back there. What kind of credentials should we possibly be thinking about?
A university degree, maybe.
In?
Islamic studies.
Alright, any particular university in mind?
Honestly, I don't know.
This country or another country?
I don't think that a country has anything to do with it. Just
Okay.
any country that offers that course, I guess.
Alright, so what kind of course then would be?
Well, like I said, Islamic studies, but I'm not too sure.
What the Islamic Studies course is about. Alright. So you there at the back?
I'm at Azhar in Cairo.
Okay. Yeah, Jamia. So, alright, for those who don't know, what is that?
It's a university
This is what, sorry?
Sacred?
No.
Yeah, could say that. You could say that.
What would you say?
Often.
Yeah, sacred. Yeah. What about conventional? Somebody went to Azhar University. Okay, good. I will come back and mention Azhar at the end. Inshallah. Yeah, you're correct. So yeah, Islamic University. Anything else?
Their teacher.
The teacher.
Yeah.
What about the teacher?
But has it been passed down from generation?
Should link back to the Prophet itself.
It should link back to the Prophet himself. What, the teacher or
I mean, the teaching stuff.
the teachings?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Anything else from the women?
What you said last week, which is what Simon was saying, so you said that the scholar must have a scholar must have a scholar,
Actually.
was originally taught by the Prophet. So there must be a chain that
Yes.
was broken.
Good. You can all go home. You guys can stay behind. Inshallah. How confident are you guys in working out if somebody has that or not? Because it's good that you kind of got it in your head what you should be looking for, but in terms of applying that, are you able to apply that to people? Are you able, for example, to look at a particular speaker or a person who writes books or who's got a massive following and able to apply those things? Are you able to do that?
In the past, yes. Recently, no.
In the past, yes.
Yes.
And recently, no. So why in the past, yes?
It's like maybe some, I don't know, Muslim scholars that maybe you would, I respected, and now they are like interfering their own in the field of politics. They're giving some really weird statements. Which for me,
Right.
is like,
So slow down, bit by bit.
yeah.
It's a big topic, you've opened a big topic up now. So bit by bit. Start again.
Just like some scholars in the past, I would follow what they are
When you
saying.
say past, you mean like 1,000 years ago? Or I mean, what
No,
your
in my past.
In your past?
Yeah, in my past. It's
Why?
like the moment I have seen them giving these kind of political statements. So it's like my own past.
So when you say past, there's context. Like,
Yeah.
past to me, I'm thinking like over 1,000 years. So your past and my past are two different things. Okay, interesting. Anything else from the guys?
It matters what you study and how long you study too, because you could go to Jama'at al-Azhar for like a year doing Sharia, but then that doesn't mean that you're a scholar of hadith.
That's an important question. Kharij Jama'at al-Azhar, someone who's graduated or gone or left Jama'at al-Azhar, yeah, but how long have they gone there and what do they specialize in? That's quite an important question. That's important. Okay, you've all gone to university. I've come out, I've graduated from University of Liverpool in the year 2020 or whatever, 2019. Yeah, and what? And how many subjects get taught at this university? Yeah, so there's something wrong with my car. Am I going to ask? Do I ask Simon? For example, about my car? My university, you should know. It doesn't make any sense. But yet, the idea that if somebody has a title, Sheikh, that he knows everything, and we can ask him anything. Particularly in this day and age, doesn't really hold up. In the past, yes, in this day and age, it doesn't hold up. And certainly it's not as widespread as it was in the past. Alright, so you've spent the last 8 weeks answering the question of how Allah Azza wa Jalla has preserved his faith. A good starting point is therefore to see if the speaker follows one of the 4 schools of thought, belongs to one of the 3 schools on Aqidah, and recognizes the validity and the importance of the science of the soul. So if an individual, speaker, lecturer, whatever, imam, does not believe in following one of the 4 schools, that's a good indication that you should now stop asking him or her any questions. Why?
Historically, that's how the religion has been preserved.
Yep. And again, If somebody says, "Why I don't follow any schools of Aqidah or Tasawwuf is all bad," then these are early warning signs. These what do you call it? Shots fired. These are your shots fired. Right? Literally, if you find an individual who hasn't got a clue what you've just said regarding these things, just turn around and walk away. So if they've never heard of these things, or they don't follow Madhab, they say, "I don't follow Quran and Sunnah," or they do follow a school but advocate a picking and mixing approach. A bit from the Malikis, a bit from the Shafi'is, a bit from the Hanbalis, and end up doing an act of worship that is incorrect in all four schools. Historically, that is called talfiq in the books of fiqh, of sharia. That process of picking and mixing and doing an act of worship that can be rejected by all four schools as being invalid, that was known as talfiq. Or somebody, like I've just said, simply said, "No, just go back to the Quran and Sunnah." Or those that claim the Ash'aris and the Maturidis are deviant, heretical, despite the majority of the Ummah following them. I think last year here in Liverpool there was like some kind of conference or mini conference in which the day was all about how, or part of the day was about how the Ash'aris and the Maturidis were deviants. And a group of young people went to listen to that garbage, basically. They don't understand. The blind, one eye in the blind. Or somebody said, "That's not the way of the Salaf," but that it isn't following my group or my Sheikh, for example. These are all things that should ring alarm bells in your heads. So is a bid'ah and has no place in Islam, or anything else that goes against what we have come to understand as the way of the vast majority of Muslims, but the vast majority of Islamic history. And that's what you should do, not listen to them. Are we confident in accepting what I just said there? I hope so. So caution in red. Alright, so credentials. This will assist you greatly and save you a lot of time, headache, and confusion. All you've got to do is ask those who've spent time, effort, and years, and they will tell you, "Yeah, this is your credential is massively important. I wish I knew now what I knew then." So this will simplify the chaos. On top of this, we should be also asking the following questions. So listen, pay attention. Where did he or she study? Why do people find that difficult to ask?
It sounds disrespectful.
Sounds disrespectful. I can tell you that from somebody who has been away to study, and hopefully I can speak for most people, I hope, is that we're like massively impressed when somebody says, "Where'd you study?" Because like we can talk about it. "Oh, yeah, I did this, went there, did this and that." Most people don't ask. So that is not a rude question. Alright? If the person takes it as being rude, then that's their problem. Alright? But have the confidence to ask, where did you study? So who are your teachers? Now, obviously, some of you may not know the teachers themselves, but should you know a name of some teachers, for example, in a particular, for example, Jamiat al-Azhar, if you're familiar with some of the scholars there, then that's maybe worthwhile asking, who did you study with when you were there, for example. What are their qualifications? What level of qualification did you achieve in the Islamic sciences? What is their field of expertise? See, the problem we have nowadays is that you've got people who, for example, I'll give you an example. When I was in Cardiff, there was a particular imam who was saying all kinds of crazy stuff. It just wasn't accurate at all from a Sharia perspective. And when I inquired about him, people would say, oh, but he is Azhari. He come up from Azhar University, which is the oldest Islamic, one of the oldest Islamic universities, or if not the oldest, in the Islamic world, currently in Egypt. And when I inquired about what exactly did he study, it was Arabic. So he came out of the Arabic language department. So I said, okay. So why on earth is he talking about Sharia and making massive mistakes in some of the things that he's saying? And because people are saying, well, he's Imam, he's a Sheikh from Azhar University, and because this Imam himself didn't have the right tools, had not taken the faith fully, and when I say fully, he didn't have the spiritual side that made him fear Allah. To say, right, I'm going to stay in my lane and not talk about things that I have no knowledge of, despite me knowing Arabic, despite me maybe memorizing the Quran, but I have no expertise in other aspects, so I should keep quiet. But he didn't. And it caused massive amount of fitna. And so when I came across, like, this guy's subhanAllah, a Dajjal, as far as I'm concerned, because just say, alas, I don't know. This is something quite important that we'll talk about tonight. The idea, I don't know. That's never been a bad thing. For a scholar and imam to say, I don't know, it's half of knowledge. Half of knowledge is to say, I don't know. Even if they have academic qualifications. You mentioned before, right? Yeah, you?
Yeah.
Even if they have academic qualifications, are these combined with the study of classical texts? Why is this important? Why is that important?
Classical and historical.
Mm-hmm.
This must have been approved in the past.
You just go back to the original sources.
Alright? Does that mean something else to me? I'm not sure if it means the same thing to you. Like if somebody has gone to a university in Newcastle, Islamic education or Islamic studies, and they haven't studied classical texts. That's about the point. What have they studied on this course? You may be a historical course, which, okay, you're a historian, but you're not faqih. You're not somebody of Sharia who can give Islamic rulings. You're not muhaddith, a scholar of hadith. You're not a scholar of Quranic commentary, mufassir. Maybe you've done Islamic studies, but you've done it from a historical perspective. Very different. Hence, if they have academic qualifications from a university that teaches Islam, have they studied classical texts? Have they studied the tafsir of al-Qurtubi, tafsir ibn Kathir? Have they studied some of the books of fiqh, for example, in any of the 4 schools? Have they studied an Ash'ari book or Maturidi book in Aqidah? If they haven't, then that in itself would not be enough. You see, it has to be connected with that. Alright? In my experience, some of the people that have gone to universities that have studied Islam, it's pretty poor. Because they haven't, what they've taken from a historical perspective, they haven't taken the actual fruits of the subject itself. Very important, did they understand the context, the culture of the place he or she is issuing a ruling for? Why is that important? Why should they have an understanding of the context and the culture of the place that they are issuing an Islamic opinion for?
Because it really changes according to the context and the culture.
But isn't Islam for all time and all places?
It looks at the context and then
Yeah.
takes the decision.
That's right. That is right. That's incredibly important, as you will see tonight. Are they currently actively practicing? So, you know, why would you think that's important?
if they have not been actively practicing, then they may be rusty in their knowledge and in the way in which they do ijtihad and give rulings.
Yeah.
Or it could just be the ego carrying it forward. As in, they've done so much up to that point where they can't back down anymore, but they might not be practicing at the same time.
Yeah.
But outwardly, this is the main source of income for some people, so they have to keep it going.
Yeah, they are all valid answers. I would also, put forward from my experience in this field is that some people have gone to a very liberal interpretation of Islam, and they're so liberal that they didn't even pray anymore. So, for example, someone may want to argue the issue of I want to keep on using hijab as an example. That's the one that in the weekend that I was bombarded with recently. Someone will say, no, you don't need to have this hijab thing anymore. It doesn't need to be. It's not valid, and so on and so forth. For example, and you look at themselves and they are not practicing Islam anymore because the type of approach they're taking, very liberal. Everything's halal. Like just reinterpreting everything again, and no longer even practicing, and maybe even criticizing certain aspects of Islam because they've either left Islam completely. They're murtad. They've left Islam, and this is something you switch on a particular channel during a particular day, news channel, and you'll find a particular individual who I'm referring to as an example of this. And the greatest question we should be concerned with. What do you think? Have a look, what's missing? They're all valid things, but something's missing. The greatest. Anybody want to have a go?
Do they have permission to give rulings?
Yep. Anything else? And?
Is there a correct unbroken chain of transmission?
Do they have a sanad? This is what you mentioned. An unbroken chain of transmission. And do they have an ijazah, permission, authority, license to teach? So all of those things are massively important, and these two things are the top of your list. I'll put them the other way around, but from now on, going forward, I want you to re-evaluate everybody you're currently listening to, hearing from, benefiting from in this light. And you may be surprised. You may find that those people who you have given your time and effort to maybe are not people who have that deserve it. And as difficult as that is, but if this is your akhirah, and it's important, loyalties to individuals, groups, or friends, or even family members are irrelevant when it comes to your akhirah. You are standing on your qiyamah dealing with your life choices. Alright, the concept of sanad. Who wants to read? Anyone want to read? Alright, Ishaq, sanad.
One of the unique attributes of Islam, having a continuous and unbroken sanad chain with respect to transmission, understanding, and spiritual purification. An unbroken chain of teachers who are traced back to the Prophet ﷺ. Amongst the special features of the classical Islamic education system approach is that its sciences and knowledge disciplines are passed down and transmitted from generation to generation, and which constitute a continuous and unbroken chain of religious scholars and practitioners.
So this idea of sanad, an unbroken chain of transmission, every generation receives from the generation preceding it a continuous chain and uninterrupted understanding. This is unique to Islam. From my research and from listening to other scholars, no other faith has it. It's only Islam that has it in such a highly organized, sophisticated way. The science of hadith, all right, where a hadith is taken from somebody who took it from someone who took it back to the Prophet. And the science behind authenticating hadith and looking at the men and women who've narrated these hadith, that is a whole science in Islam that pushed the intellectual geniuses of this ummah to the limits. And we have approximately 500,000 people whose lives were investigated to see whether or not they were worthy of the hadith being taken from them, because their names were in the chain, in the sanad of a particular hadith, for example. So people then naturally, to authenticate what they were saying, the Prophet said, we then need to look into the individual himself. Have they ever lied? What age were they when they mentioned or they narrated the hadith? What kind of piety? That's a kind of the level of precision and struggle that the ulama went to find out. 500,000 people were analysed and cross-analysed to see whether they're worthy or not to have the hadith taken. And that's called ilm al-rijal, the science of men. And not just men, by the way, who narrate the hadith, even women. And what's interesting is that in the science of hadith, or the ilm of rijal, the science of the narrators, the people who narrate the hadith, historically there has never been women. There has never been women who falsely attributed the hadith to the Prophet. It's called al-Madhab in Arabic, in hadith sciences. Forging a hadith is a major sin. It's a big sin. The Prophet said, he who says something about me, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, let him or her take their place in Jahannam. And people, for various reasons, would forge hadith and introduce those hadith into the hadith literature, sometimes for political and sometimes for other reasons. But in the science of the hadith of forgeries, those who forged hadith, there's never been one claim or one example where a woman has done that, despite women being narrators of hadith historically. It's always been the men that have forged the hadith, it's been the women. It's interesting in itself. So the idea of sanad, an unbroken chain of transmission. The knowledge you are receiving from a particular teacher can be traced back to a teacher before him, or her, right back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in things like books, if you study Bukhari with the Sheikh, that Sheikh should then be part of a continuous transmission of information or knowledge from a Sheikh back to the Imam Bukhari himself. So we have scholars who have this sanad, a chain of transmission, back to the author of books. In other words, that the Bukhari taught somebody, and that particular individual went and taught somebody else, who then went and taught somebody else, right up until the present day, where you can go and sit with somebody who can connect you back to the Bukhari himself. That's called sanad. And that is something that we have in all our Islamic sciences. Okay? So an important thing, when you're going to take knowledge from somebody, does he or she have an unbroken chain of transmission, a sanad? And traditionally, somebody who's gone to an Islamic university like Al-Azhar, for example, will have that. Alright, will have that, because the people at that university will not be any people from outside who just crept in and started teaching. Now, these are people who've been vetted. Also, similarly important, as Ishaq mentioned, just because you've gone to an Islamic university like Azhar, or the great schools of Hadramaut, or in Turkey, or Morocco, or in the subcontinent, for example, Indonesia, just because you go there does not mean that you're an authority, because you can go there for a week. You can go there and not pass any exams. You can even go there and just not do anything. Alright, just go there, bismillah, and then come back wearing the hat, the red hat with the white turban and the jubbah, and I am Azhari. Yeah, but did you study in Azhar? What did you do? And you studied, there were exams, right? There must have been some exams. And this leads me on to what I'm going to talk about now. Permission to teach, ijaza. Bismillah.
None of the students who follow this approach will venture to take up leading positions except after receiving knowledge and keeping one company with scholars until they grant him permission or a formal license in transmitting, especially in deep narrations, teaching, writing, and imparting knowledge. Should you inquire from one of them as to his teachers, he will mention a number of them. Should you ask him how long he has spent in the company of his teacher or teachers, he will say that he has spent a long time in their company until he understood and comprehended from them their methodology of understanding and the entries to knowledge. This is contrary to other approaches which are broken and interrupted, and in which a student will take a leading position without keeping company with scholars. And should you ask one of them how much time he has spent in the company of his teacher, he will say he only met them once, or he has only spent a limited number of hours with them.
Or even worse, doesn't have a teacher. And that's quite common, you know. I mean, again, recently somebody asked me a question, and I provided them with the answer that I was taught from my teachers, and they said, well, you know, I kind of thought that was the answer, but people, since I've come to university, I'm hearing all kinds of weird things. And I said, well, can you go back and ask these individuals, where are you getting these understandings from? And the individual came back to me and said, well, from themselves. From themselves. And that's honest. And I said, well, you know, point proven. That's the point proven right there. And people are just making it up as they go along or trying to interpret things. It's interesting, none of these individuals come to my classes. That's quite, for me, that tells you a lot. When you, well, you know, come to the classes, come and learn something. Well, I don't need to, I know it all. Why read it? Him telling me what Islam is? I can do it myself. I have the Arabic language. أنا أتكلم عربي. أنا عربي أتكلم عربي. How is it possible for him to have obtained knowledge, and how can his understanding be trusted? So, ijaza, permission, license, they've been vetted. They've gone through a rigorous system where the Sheikh has said, right, you have understood what it is that I've been trying to say and what it is that I've been trying to teach you, and I acknowledge that either through a test or from some other means. You now know, which then means you can go now and teach it. You see, and then so you have the Senate and ijaza to go and do that. It's kind of like logical things, right? You can't come out of university without having studied with teachers and, you know, getting a graduation and getting a certificate, and then, you know, going into the job afterwards will say, well, what did you graduate in? Which university did you go to? What did you graduate? Did you pass? What grades did you get? Same thing with Islamic education. It should not be any different. It should be more important. These type of vetting systems, or quality assurance, as they perhaps call it today. All right, let's. Okay, we can, not many slides left. We'll continue and then we'll stop and we'll pray Isha at the end, inshallah. All right, so people don't run away. I've noticed people don't come back to Salah. Are we still, is that okay? Still recording?
Yes.
Alright, Islamic scholarship has been protected for centuries from misguidance by preserving authentic knowledge through an unbroken chain of teachers sent back to the original authority. It boggles me that a faith so well preserved as Islam can have people so confused as to what Islam actually says. I repeat it again. A faith so well preserved historically can have so many people confused as to what Islam is all about. Do you understand? Do you agree? Some of you may, some of you yes, some of you no. An unbroken chain of teachers. In absence of this, what you have? If you don't have an unbroken chain of transmission of knowledge back to the Prophet, what do you have? You have a broken chain, which means what? What does it literally? What does that mean?
Lost knowledge.
Somebody says something.
I said knowledge lost.
Yeah, put your hand up. Come up over here.
Knowledge that's lost and changed on the way.
And how's that change been introduced?
Lot of different interpretations.
And so basically, people now are interjecting and adding their understandings of Islam that cannot be traced back to the Prophet himself. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Do you understand that? I'll repeat that again. When you have a broken chain, you can imagine a chain, this idea of a chain with links. You become a link to that chain back to the Prophet or to the author of the particular book. Obviously goes back to the Prophet anyway. But when you don't have this chain back to the Prophet, and it goes back to somebody in this age, or maybe a century or 2 centuries ago, then know that what you're getting is not from the Prophet, it's from that particular individual who introduced that particular understanding. So for example, we have senates for everything in this day and age. Somebody who's an atheist, does not believe in God, has a unbroken chain of transmission back to the first individual who brought that idea up. They may think it's their idea, but it's not. It goes back to the first person who introduced that understanding, to humanity. So if you think about it that way, you can argue there are 2 types of synods. One is a shaitanic synod, and one is a prophetic type of transmission. All right. So, for example, Marxism, find yourself going back to Shaitan, or Nazism, the Senate will go back to Shaitan. These type of racism literally goes back to Shaitan because he did not bow down to Adam. Why? Well, I made out of the fire, a clay. I'm better than him. Right? The idea of physical appearances can somehow mean that I'm greater and better than somebody else. Or people would still have that today. That's called racism, and that has a chain of transmission. Go back to who? Shaitan. Right? So we all have chains of transmission of our opinion and our knowledges, of the knowledge that we have. The science of Quranic recitation, the scholar would have learnt from his teacher, who had learnt from his teacher, and so on until the chain of teachers would be back to the Prophet himself. It's an amazing thing and an amazing achievement that we can say that the Quran, unlike other books or the faiths or the traditions of Christianity and Judaism, that we know how every single word in the Quran is pronounced and what it means. With the version of the Bible, they don't know how the original words in Greek, for example, or whatever language they were using. They don't know what those words mean and how they pronounce. We know how to pronounce the Quran perfectly. So you could take somebody from Indonesia and go to a mosque, for example, in Liverpool, and get them both in the same room, and both of them will recite the Quran exactly the same. You can't say that about other books. We know exactly how the Quran was recited, the lengths of the madud, the recitation, how long, how it's said, the different rules. The Quran has been uniquely preserved in its pronunciation. And that cannot be said of other traditions. For us, it's simple, and Allah said, I have revealed this Quran, I will preserve it. That should, mashallah, be like, wow. Anything, that should, subhanAllah, this faith has some divinity to it, something divine happening in this faith, because that can't be said by any other book. And we know exactly how it's said and the way it's said. Yes, there are some, and even this variance. Just for example, like if you look here in the UK, in terms of accents, people in Liverpool have a particular accent, people in London have a particular accent, and people in Scotland have a particular accent, and people in Ireland have a particular accent. They all say things differently, right? Different accents. But the Quran, 1.3 billion people are able to recite the Quran correctly in the same accent by and large. And that is amazing in and of itself. The preservation of the Quran, because there were specific Sahaba who were masters at the Quran, and they passed this knowledge on to those that came after them. The scholar would have direct connection through a line of teachers to the Prophet ﷺ, and ensure the Quran was recited as it was revealed. This is the way it was said regarding Sanad or Isnad. And it was said that famous citation to Imam Abdullah ibn Mubarak, Isnad, unbroken chain of transmission, is part of the religion. And if it was not for Isnad, people would have said whatever they desired. You understand that? If it wasn't for Isnad, then people would say whatever they want, whenever they want. Which is kind of the day and age we're living in, right? Everyone's saying whatever they want, whenever they want. Why? Because where is their Sanad goes back to themselves. So Sanad is from this deen, and if it was not for Isnad, people would say whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted. And as long as, this is another aspect of the statement, and as long as somebody says, where did you get that from? And they say, Haddathani fulan, or so-and-so scholar told me, as long as that is still the case, then the deen is intact. The religion is safe. However, if that is no longer the case, where somebody is no longer able to tell you where they got the understanding from, then there is danger, there's alarm bell, there's problem, there's chaos. That's what we have today. And one of the early Muslims said that once sanad disappears, the deen disappears with it. It's one of the secrets of this deen, one of the secrets of the preservation of this deen is sanad. Chain, unbroken chain of transmission. Okay. Imam Malik, Bismillah, Muslims throughout history have shown extreme caution regarding Islamic knowledge. We learn from the Sahaba that when asked a question, they prefer others to answer due to the possibility that they may give an incorrect answer for which they would be held accountable by Allah Azza wa Jal. The idea that the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet, would defer. We say, ask so-and-so, who then would ask somebody else, who then ask somebody else, back to the original person who got asked to begin with. Now, this, with today, is a completely different thing. People sometimes, after Jum'ah, ask me a question, and before I answer, three or four people who happen to be listening tell them 5 different things. That's a common problem. People are quick to give answers to questions. Oh, well, I heard this, or I heard this, or this was said, or I seen it on the TV, or Sheikh so-and-so said that. And a lot of the time, it's not very accurate. I can see some of you getting tired. We'll pause, and we will go do wudu, for those of you who do wudu, and we'll pray Isha, come back. We don't have a lot to get done. I intend to finish in the next half an hour, 40 minutes. So try and come back, inshallah. For those of you who need to do wudu, go and do wudu. Otherwise, when we pray, be back in about 10-15 minutes ish. We'll be back, inshallah.
Just click on that as well.
This one?
Yeah. Bismillah.
Okay. So, assalamu alaikum, welcome back.
Alaikum salam.
Those of you who come back, inshallah. Continuing on this theme of authority, some of you might have noticed that there are certain things that are being repeated. They're being repeated because of the importance of those things. That I want you to really take these messages home because it's going to make your life easier. It's going to make my life a lot more easier in dealing or answering some of your questions. So Imam Malik, Muslims throughout history have shown extreme caution regarding Islamic knowledge. There wasn't this big appetite to be the first to answer the questions that we see today on the comment section in Facebook or on Twitter or whatever, the type of entitlement to have it being heard. We learn from the Sahaba that when asked a question, they would prefer others to answer due to the possibility that they may give an incorrect answer. This is the way of the early generations. Imam Malik in one gathering was asked many questions by a man. Some say 39 questions to 40 questions. And Imam Malik answered the majority of these questions, but I don't know. Despite him being Imam Dar al-Hijrah, the great Imam of Medina, the great Imam of his age, despite this individual coming from far off to ask him questions, to which he replied, the vast majority, I don't know. When he was asked by this man, this traveller, what am I meant to say to the people who have collected all these questions, people from my town, my village, what am I meant to say to them about the great Imam Malik? He couldn't answer most of the questions. Imam Malik simply said, just tell them, I don't know. So this idea of saying, I don't know, it was never seen early on as something bad. In fact, it was seen as a hallmark of knowledge, of piety. Half of knowledge is saying, I do not know. And this reflected a fear of Allah, taqwa, a deep accountability before Allah. They say that the early generation of Muslims, I think Imam Shafi'i was known to say that before he was asked a question, before answering that question, he would ponder, he would pause and reflect. And when he asked about why he was pausing and reflecting, he said, I want to know that I'm testing myself on Yawm al-Qiyamah. Is it safe for me to answer this question or remain silent? This pause is a pause of reflection, where I'm reflecting on how is this going to play out for me on the Day of Judgment. And how many of us even think that far? So due to the danger and harm which unqualified scholarship can cause for normal citizens, historically the head of the Muslim state, the Khalifa, had the power to ban and punish these unqualified scholars. Alright? This is massively important. You had fake doctors running around with white overcoats and these things in their ears and trying to cure people and killing people. Then the state, the head of the state, would what? Rightly imprison them and maybe even very harsh punishments. Unfortunately today, we have an absence of such a governing body that oversees this in the West. So here in the UK, we don't have this body that is checking everything that's being said. We don't have that. Unqualified people are free to say whatever they want, even if it is wrong, and feeling that I'm entitled to my opinion. And for me it was strange, interesting, when I was on the interfaith panel, the one that was done here, last week, remember the interfaith panel in March? Yeah? Just seeing the audience, particularly some of our Muslim brothers and sisters, just feeling entitled, what they understand is correct. Just shocked some of the levels of, just just shocked. I don't want to say too much about it. Just move on. So this allowed two extreme groups to emerge that would have been controlled in the past. Any idea? Right, yeah, so the violent extremists, and on the other end, yeah. So a bit more detail. So the first ultra-conservative, rigid takfir jihadi, alright, declaring other Muslims as non-Muslims. So this is like your kind of ISIS, your Al-Qaeda, and just those just before them, you could argue. And the second are the ultra-liberal, progressive, modernist, reformist, God knows what else, other word you can throw in there, who want to change everything and anything according to whims, desires, and the political mood of the day and age. They engage in making haram lawful and the lawful haram. Anybody come across either of these?
Yeah.
Alright. You in the red? For example?
Just online.
Online?
Something weird.
Alright, so give me an example so people know I'm not making this up. Don't share any names, an example.
We'll get to think about it.
Anybody can give an example? Hassan?
The guy you always told us about, you mentioned the guy that said that we need to make prayer times more convenient.
You could just say speaker's corner.
Yeah, okay. Speaking. It's all that kind of web. For those who don't know what it is, when I tell them about that. Yeah, there are certain places where you can find all these things in one particular park, in one particular city, in one particular morning or evening, on one particular day of the week. Inshallah.
Even like some people are like, you don't really have to pray, it's not in the Quran.
Yeah, not to pray, it's not in the Quran, which is true. It's not in the Quran. What are you saying? Yeah, it doesn't say in the Quran how many rak'ahs is Dhuhr, how many rak'ahs is Asr. It doesn't tell you in the Quran how to precisely play and what time to pray at. It doesn't say that. But it says in the Hadith. And that's why the Hadith is such an important aspect, that without the Hadith you won't understand the Quran. I can give you plenty of examples of these. If you want to during the Q&A, I may give examples. I'm just conscious of your switch off times in your consciousness. Inshallah. And they both go beyond the valid parameters of interpretation and then attack Muslims who follow mainstream scholarship as backwards and not progressive. Both groups are described by the Quran. Who is surprised at that? The Quran speaks about both these groups. It doesn't call them reformists or takfiris, doesn't, but it talks about the mentality of these groups in the Quran in one verse. Who wants to read it? Ishaq, read it.
Bismillah. Have you not seen the one who makes his own desires as his God, and Allah has thereupon let go astray?
Have you not seen the one who makes his own desires their God? Allah has thereupon let them go astray. I do not need to wear the hijab. It doesn't say hijab in the Quran. Or, yes, it does say hijab or to cover, but it doesn't say you have to. It doesn't say you have to pray. It doesn't say this, it doesn't say that. What's going on there? Desires, right? My God. I am desirous of not wanting to do this or do that. Akhi, in the Quran it says, kill them wherever you find them. Akhi, in the Quran it says, if you punish them with equal punishment that they punish you with. Kill them whenever you find them. I've been ordered to fight against people, well, translate it that way, until they believe La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Hadith. All these hadiths and verses of the Quran have been taken out of context based on the desires of individuals. And the reality is that, are they worshipping Allah? No. They're worshipping their own desires. Their desires is Allah. Their own desires are is their God. That's what they're worshipping. And that's what's happening. So when you get an individual saying, I don't need to follow a scholar in Azhar University, I don't need to follow a scholar in Pakistan or in India. To some extent that is right, and I explain why, but overall to completely reject the institutions, the Islamic institutions in the heartlands of Islam, and reject them simply having no benefit or worth, or neglecting and rejecting a tradition of 1,000 years, where the ancients, the ulama of the past, can no longer benefit us, or have anything to benefit us in this day and age. People, that's what they say. They come on with all kinds of craziness. Which one's more dangerous, in your opinion? The ultra-conservative, rigid, takfiri, jihadi, or the ultra-liberal? Ponder on it. Ponder on it. 20 seconds to ponder. You. What's your name?
Raheem.
Wahib or Rahib?
Raheem. Oh, Raheem.
Rahib. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just a matter of opinion.
I'd say ultra conservatives was.
Oh, why is that then?
I think it's wrong to call a non-Muslim. So I think it's wrong to call a Muslim a non-Muslim in any sense. So even if they're like not that strict.
So why would you not say that the ultra-liberals, modernists, whatever they are, they can call themselves, are lesser danger? Or less of a threat?
I can't give an answer.
Thank you for the first answer. Now I know your name and you're calling out a bit more often. Welcome to the class. Wish you come back though. You at the back, sisters, your opinion?
I feel like both of them are equally dangerous because they both represent Islam in the wrong way.
Yeah, interesting. Simon? Amna. Simon, that's Amna.
I think
Or Amina. Sorry.
I think both because they both affect people, other people negatively.
Example?
As in a motivates when people decide you like to say not wearing a hijab and someone who's struggling with it might go with the idea. Whereas someone, if you make them feel someone who's already following that kind of extreme mentality, they might go kill someone.
You know, the idea of the hijab, for example, over the weekend, a sister messaged me and said, what words are saying in the Quran that a sister has to wear the hijab. And I was asked this last year, in the classes last year, if you remember. Look at me blankly. No, not you, somebody else. You remember that as well, okay, good. So, I got asked that question on the weekend, and I gave the answer, and she said, "Well, I knew that was the answer, but before coming to university, I knew that to be the case. But now coming to university, I'm hearing sisters saying all these strange, weird things I've never heard, and because I don't have any knowledge, I don't engage in it. I just stick to what I know." She herself doesn't wear the hijab, by the way. Just to put context into the situation. I know hijab is part of our faith, and obviously everyone has their journey to achieve it, wearing the hijab, and it's not for me to push or anything like that. But it was interesting that she was saying, from a viewpoint of somebody who does not wear the hijab, that she's coming across sisters who are now advocating you don't wear the hijab based on the verse of the Quran, not saying hypothetically that you don't have to wear the hijab, which it does. But, there we go. Desires. I'm desirous that I don't need to wear the hijab. Therefore, I'm going to justify not wearing the hijab by trying to interpret it and rejecting 1,000 years worth of scholarship and Arabic language at the same time. Desires. But yeah, anyway,
I was just thinking that maybe in the far past, when there was a lot of wars and a lot of things happening back then, that the most dangerous group would be the ultra-conservative, because maybe back then, when maybe the faith was a bit more strong, but simply saying this person is kafir or anything like that is such a strong thing to hit people internally that they would react in a very extremist way. Whereas now, in a more peaceful, quote-unquote peaceful time, we'll say less wars in general, the more dangerous group would be the ultra-liberal. Yeah, I know. I mean, quote-unquote, the ultra-liberal will be more dangerous because everyone is in a very shaken state, and everyone is saying, it's okay, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's all about your intentions, don't worry about it.
I would gravitate towards yourself, Simon, and sorry. I try to simply because you know the jihadi takfiri types, you kind of like instinctively know, okay, this guy's dodgy. Yeah, it's like, you know, actually you need to go and kill people. Kind of just you know, okay, bit dodgy, I need to walk away because either he's crazy or he's MI5. So it's a bit dodgy, so, you know. Whereas the liberal, more progressive, it's more like sugarcoat. So, you know, Islam doesn't need to be this hard, you know, we need to maybe relook at it. It's more intellectual. That's, for me, it's a bit more dangerous. Whereas the crazy lunatic foaming at the mouth and trying to kill everybody, it's easy to reject that. Whereas the other, initially you could open up and listen to it a bit more. You see, you're not careful, you'll be sucked into that. Inshallah. Yeah. When deciding between a scholar and a preacher, it is only from the scholar that we should take Islamic rulings. As for preachers, people of da'wah, we can benefit from them in non-technical issues. So just encouragement to do good. So should somebody now be telling you, sister, you need to love your mother, brothers, you need to love your father, so on and so forth, feed the poor, look after, respect for the elders, look after the needy, give charity. You don't need to say to him or her, have you got ijazah? Have you got sanad? Which university? We're not talking to that level. Somebody, telling you, be a good person. You do not now need to go cross-analyze his whole life and try and work out where he or she got what you're saying. There's general principles. Yeah? This is providing that they subscribe to the definition of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. In other words, if somebody is not from Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, then you should not be listening to them. Unless you want to, that's okay, but I'm just advocate that you don't. Alright? Unless you have a sufficient amount of knowledge to differentiate between what they're saying, between what is right and wrong. Until you have that, you should not be listening to anybody that's outside of the very broad definition of four schools and the Aqidah and the spiritual aspect of Islam. Otherwise, you're going to fall into some kind of hot waters. If you don't, you run the course of getting confused, like I've just mentioned. When unable to tell or differentiate between genuine sources of Islamic knowledge, some have paid a price by being caught up into the two extreme groups we just mentioned. Such groups try to stop their members from accessing genuine scholarship. So these groups or sects, they will say, don't listen to Sheikh so-and-so. Don't go to Sheikh so-and-so, don't read his books, don't listen to his lectures, don't pray behind him, don't give him salam, don't look at him, just don't. Yeah? And some people go for one time, in this very, confused state, very paranoid, I can't listen to so-and-so because he's an innovator, he's a mubtadi', and so on and so forth. It is only when members, this is very important, eventually come into contact with genuine scholarship, who can articulate clear arguments from a solid scholarly basis, that they then question what they have been taught by their own groups and then leave them. So, at a point where they start to, I need to maybe listen to other people, maybe not just listen to my sheikh and what he is saying, and listen to other sheikhs, then they come across, well, hang on a minute, Islam is not what he or she is telling me. It's a bit more broader, it's a bit more generous. There's room in heaven for more people. Not just my sheikh and my group. Heaven in 7 levels, mashallah. Even if all your group and your sheikh, go to Jannah, Jannah is big enough for everybody else. Why are you going to shove everybody else out of Jannah? That's a big place. But when they get themselves out of this group thinking and start reading more broadly, then they always generally leave that group. And you see this, and I've seen it time and time again, as I've grown older, many examples of this. And if you live long enough, you will see what I'm telling you, you will see it yourselves. And some have gone on to exposing the distortions of their groups. They're going to be people who've refuted those groups, so either ex-jihadis or ex-liberals or whatever. Yeah? They're very fascinating as well. Others are fortunate to access real scholarship, but do not realize that a fatwa can differ according to time and place and people. So Abdullah, back to Abdullah again, Bismillah.
Therefore, they may come across a ruling in which, in example, a scholar in Saudi Arabia or Pakistan issued for their specific country and then wrongly apply it in the West. Much distress and suffering can be avoided by people taking their knowledge from the right people to begin with.
Alright, so there's a sheikh, for example, in one particular part of the world who may give a particular fatwa, an Islamic legal opinion, for the people who asked him that question who happen to be from Saudi Arabia. Now that may be well fair, and applicable to where they're from. But to suddenly now pick that fatwa and apply it in Liverpool, 2019, for example, different circumstances, may not be wise. Well, isn't Islam for every time and every place? Well, yes, but Islamic rulings change according to the time and place and the cultures. That is true. And which distress and suffering can be avoided by people taking their knowledge from the right people to begin with. Anybody want to give examples to this?
It's like, I think it was in one of the Scandinavian countries over Ramadan, I've heard of it, they're allowed to use other prayer times and use other fast times in some cases. Somebody was given a fatwa, something like that.
Okay.
I think what it's talking about is, I think in Norway, something like that, they have daylight for quite a few months.
30 days at night, yeah? MashaAllah, only a couple of people know that. Who hands up who understood what I just said? Seriously? Hassan as well?
I've heard of it.
I heard of it.
Just keep it there. Alright, next. I revealed too much about myself in this class this evening. Yeah, go ahead. Is that it? Okay, inshallah. Anything else? Any other examples?
Do you have any examples?
MashaAllah,
That's not funny. I mean, I think one example I would say perhaps is where Saudi Arabia, look at the time for example, Saudi Arabia say, right, tomorrow's Ramadan. Yeah, and okay, that's maybe for their geographical location may be true, but for us in the UK that may not be true because the moon cannot be sighted today. But I'll talk more about that in the future. Elephants at the door. Okay, simply because of time. But maybe in the Q&A if you want to, we can go into it a bit more detail. Alright, who not to take your faith from? Do you want to read it?
Who not to take your faith from? There is a court of
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Takfir, where they declare as non-Muslims.
Now these are people, don't take your Islam from these people, alright? So whoever you come across, these type of people, don't take your faith from them.
Regard anyone that doesn't agree with them as devil.
Deviant.
Yeah. Those who preach hatred of non-Muslims and of other Muslims.
Massively important, especially here in the UK. People teaching hatred of non-Muslims and packaging that as if that's the way of the Prophet. I don't know what kind of Islam that is.
People who use the term shirk, worship of anything besides Allah, bid'ah, see previous lies loosely and frequently.
So generally, right, 3 words. If people use these 3 words, just back away carefully. Don't take your back, just back away carefully. And the three words are kafir, mushrik, bid'ah. Kafir, mushrik, and bid'ah. These three words, if people are using these three words all the time, and just walk away. Whether it's a website or wherever these words are flying around, they'll fly out the door, run away.
Those who promote division amongst Muslims, those who regard themselves as the only ones following true Islam and view the majority of Muslim scholars as wrong. Those who want to reinterpret everything to suit their views, even issues which have been agreed upon for centuries. Those who criticize, argue with everyone and anyone.
What do you laugh at? You thought there was someone you were thinking, right? Don't mention the name. Don't mention the name. When I wrote that, automatically several people came to my mind. But there we go. People like to criticize and argue. It's like Islam for them. If Islam was not criticizing and arguing, I don't know what they would do. For them, their whole faith is based on arguing and criticizing, and that's the iman. And their iman increases, and exactly that. Their iman increases, or so they think, by arguing and criticizing. And that is not a sustainable model in the long run. They will burn out.
Those who speak ill and disrespectfully of the well-known scholars, especially those that are dead, who have been known for their piety, knowledge, and service to their faith, and whose books have been recognized as sources of Islamic knowledge for centuries. And those who don't have a sanad or ijazah.
Those who do not have a sanad or ijazah, have a broken chain of transmission, or don't have a license to teach. Yeah? And there's others, but we don't have time to go into it, but I kind of think you get the idea. Community responsibility, it is a communal obligation for kifaya for every community to ensure it has good quality scholars who can address their religious needs. Allah says in the Quran, a band from each community should stay behind to gain instruction rather than going out and fighting in a religion, and to warn their people when they return so that they may take heed. Currently there is a dire shortage of quality scholars who understand Islamic knowledge in the context of the time, place, and people. Currently we have professionals who understand the society very well, and scholars who understand the Islamic sources very well. However, we need scholars who understand both worlds in depth. If our communities produce the same number, no offense to anybody in the room, the same number of quality scholars as we produce doctors, dentists, pharmacists, lawyers, engineers, whatever, we would not face so many problems with religious guidance. But we seem to promote the most brightest to go and do medicine, engineering, and so on and so forth, rather than taking the most brightest and taking them to be the Islamic scholars who then answer our questions and the questions of our children when they are in dire need or when they're losing their faith. But sadly, if you doesn't do well in A-levels or GCSEs, send them to madrasa, half of the Quran, and put them in the mosque. The media has done us no favours in recent years by allowing unqualified people to speak in the name of Islam. Both groups I mentioned before, the liberals and the ultra crazies, have been promoted via the media. In the absence of good quality scholars, many contemporary questions have been left unanswered or answered unsatisfactorily or incorrectly. Muslims and non-Muslims have been left confused. Communities need to be taking its knowledge from scholars who combine a deep Islamic knowledge with an understanding of society. Only then shall we have a clear guidance on the issues we face in this day and age. If we do not have enough scholars to do this, we need to invest for the future so we have them in the near future. So we don't have scholars, and we don't. So maybe now we need to maybe invest, look at the brightest people, maybe ourselves, maybe say, we'll stand up, right, I've got good GCSEs, good A levels, I'm going to be an Islamic scholar and come back and benefit the Ummah. You see, which is, I know many people, I've done that, myself included. I said, well, I want to do something for this Ummah, and rather than being another pharmacist or pharmacologist, which is what I was studying, I said, well, let me finish off this course, first and foremost, and then, go and, be something useful. And hence I'm sat here, or standing here, teaching you about your faith. Failing this, the situation will grow worse. It's time to encourage our best to become scholars, rather than doctors, engineers, etc., etc., etc. We need to invest in people, and not just buildings, mosques. People, invest thousands and millions of pounds in mosques. We need to maybe just start investing in people who will solve our problems. Thousands of pounds raised for building mosques, and yet we cannot take a fraction of this and invest it in producing scholars, or taking students scholarships, saying, look, next 8 years of your life, don't worry, I will take care of it. Go, be the scholar, and come back and teach. And when you get back, the community will take care of you as well. It's a big problem. A lot of brothers and sisters have gone and spent the best part of a decade in the Middle East, either in Yemen or in Syria before the madness happened, or other countries, and they've come back, and their community is just haven't, A, don't know they exist, and B, haven't respected what they've just gone and done. And then just like, they have to now go back to college, go back to university, find jobs that are just quite embarrassing given the expertise they've gone and sacrificed all those years to come back, and the community and the community then are criticising all the mosques, the imams, out of touch. Well, that may be the case, but the brothers have gone away and done that and come back, who are from the community and spent years of their lives in a very different climate, different country, and learnt and come back. There's nothing there for them. That's problematic. Case studies. Give you one or two examples. Based on now what you should know of what to look for, let's say there is Sheikh, it's called an X, Sheikh X. And he has a YouTube following of 20,000, and he gives nice Islamic lectures, and he travels the world. Should you listen to him? Hands up. Nice to see you back, though. Welcome back. Hi.
It depends.
Alright.
It depends on that whole list that you said. Has he got the qualifications? Does he know?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. Do they have those qualifications? Where have they studied? What do they study? How long have they studied? Who is their teachers? Do they have an unbroken chain of transmission? It's irrelevant. There's 60,000 following on YouTube. Completely irrelevant. Doesn't matter. That's no standard. Because I know scholars who are far more knowledgeable and don't even have a YouTube channel, or don't even have a computer.
You should.
Huh? Well, if you've lived in a particular town or village, in the depths of Yemen and the valley, computers, not everybody has a computer. Not everybody can afford to have a computer, but yet he or she is a scholar in their own right and can answer pretty much most of your questions. Alright, another example. Sheikh so-and-so has studied, Sheikh so-and-so has memorized the Quran and is a beautiful reciter of the Quran, and sells out packed audiences all over the world. You have a question in Sharia. His expertise is in reciting the Quran. Should you ask him? Hands up.
No.
Why not? He's memorized the Quran.
His expertise is not Sharia.
His expertise is not Sharia. How do you know that?
Because you said in the first.
Fair enough, yeah. I didn't say that. Alright. Well, okay. He's not, okay, let's say he's not an expert in reciting the Quran. By the way, it's a very difficult thing to memorize and recite and to maintain it and to know the different recitations. Very difficult thing. Not for me, personally. Very difficult to do though. But let's say that the individual is somebody who has memorized all 6 books of hadith. Bukhari, Muslim, Nasai, Ibn Dawood, Majah, and so on and so forth. Can we now ask him a question on Sharia? Maryam?
You might not have studied how to interpret it or.
So is that a yes or no?
It's a very big memorized, like.
Yeah, his expertise is hadith. Okay, yeah, alright. We're getting it. You're getting it. Which is what I want you to, get to that point. It's quite important. Here's a more difficult one. So and so. We're still recording, right?
Yes.
I'll leave that. Alright. And the manners, etiquettes of seeking knowledge. If somebody takes knowledge from books, they won't have manners, they won't have etiquettes. Knowledge is light that Allah places in the hearts. The great ulama of this ummah, I think Imam Malik said, knowledge is not someone who can recite a lot of different hadith and impress you with different things. Knowledge is a light that is placed within the hearts. And when you have scholars who have this unbroken chain of transmission back to the Prophet, people who've sat with scholars for years and years, they have a different vibe about them. They're very different to others who've taken the knowledge from books. There's a different vibe. There's a way, there's a taste, metaphorical. It's difficult to put into words. They emanate something different. What they're emanating is etiquette, mannerisms, adab. There's an aura around them. Why? Because they are part of this chain. They are a link in this chain back to the Prophet ﷺ. And that has spiritual benefits in it. A thing called barakah, blessings. Inshallah, you can't get out of books, reading books by yourself, you won't get this. Summary, at the end, faith deen is based on knowledge, so be careful from where you take your faith. Taking knowledge from unqualified sources can and are having devastating results in our faith and lives. Who do you take your knowledge from? That's a question. You should ask yourselves who you're taking your knowledge from. Alright. Again, Wednesday, inshallah. Recommend you come into that beautiful class. Very beautiful. One of the highlights of my week, inshallah, is this class.